2022. What started in one small classroom, one tiny classroom, has transformed to a community. And that process is something that I will never forget. One thing that has changed, that has not changed, however, though we've grown, one thing that has not changed has been our mission. Our cause has always been to promote civic engagement and to discuss difficult topics productively and creatively. According to former President Ronald Reagan, known as the Great Communicator, all change in America begins at the dinner table. Therefore, each year, I ask my students to form dinner tables, at which point I distribute copies of none other than our very own Aiken Standard. Students sit at the table, they read the articles, they discuss them, all the while a famous aphorism looms over them. A house divided against itself cannot stand. That timeless and universal truth, spoken originally in the Book of Mark and reiterated by President Abraham Lincoln, drives us. It unites us, and it unites us with civility and empathy. In the words of the man who inspired this very church, John the Apostle, beloved, as God so loves us, we ought also to love one another. I hope this light shines today. I hope this mission shines. I hope that the students, I hope that you see that they are dedicated to this cause. I hope you see also their dedication to Aiken's past, to its present, to its future. I hope you see this, and in seeing, you will also leave here believing that the future is bright and that the best is yet to come. So without further ado, welcome to our showcase, and thank you for being here. Before we begin, I would like to thank St. John's Methodist Church for allowing us to use the Faith Center today. We are grateful to you. Additionally, we must say thank you to South Aiken's administration, faculty, and staff for their continued support for our endeavors. If you are a member of South Aiken's faculty or staff, would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you, Ms. Ray. I would now like to take a moment to ask our judges if they wouldn't mind briefly introducing themselves. Because we thank you for being here today.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. I'm so excited to see what the students have to say. I'm Lisa Smith, and I've lived in Aiken since 1991, and I'm an advocate for historic preservation, and I've been involved with the horse industry my whole life. My degree is in business, and my minor is in equine science, so I'm going to be a hard judge to win.
My name is Braylen Waldo, and I represent District 5 on the City Council, the youngest City Councilman elected in the city's history. So I'm excited to be here to hear about the negatives and the positives. Unlike Lisa, preservation and progress kind of go hand in hand in my book. So I'm excited to hear what the students have to offer tonight, so thanks for having me.
I'm Roscoe Epps. I'm a business owner here in Aiken, original Aiken County. Although I'm a graduate of Aiken High School, happy to be here with y'all. Also, planning commissioner for the city of Aiken.
Again, thank you so much to you. We hope that you'll find that today you spent your time well. We really appreciate your giving up this Saturday afternoon. May I now have our speakers and leaders to the stage for introductions.
Skylar, who is a senior that attends South Aiken. And she is the event coordinator of the Speech and Debate Club, whom without her this whole event wouldn't have happened. Besides participating in this club, she is also a varsity tennis member and a yearbook editor. She plans to attend Clemson and hopes to study architecture. One thing you might not know about Ella is that she's the oldest of 4 siblings and she loves to paint.
I would like to introduce Anne-Marie Delariarte. She is a junior at South Aiken and she's our club's media specialist, whom we must recognize handles the recordings, live streams, and promotions. In addition to this club, she is also a varsity tennis player and a philanthropist with her passion project, Annie Crochet. Something you may not know about Annie is that she is a tennis ball kid for the largest women's-only professional tennis tournament in North America, the Charleston Open.
I would like to introduce Mary Davisson. She's a senior at South Aiken and our club's president. In addition to this club, she also is president of the Hosa Medical Club South Aiken. Mary plans to attend the USC and study economics. Something you may not know about Mary is that she had knee surgery last month.
I would like to introduce Skylar Battisto-Hammond. He is a senior at South Aiken, and he is our club's vice president. In addition to this club, he is also on the wrestling team. Skylar will attend USC Aiken to study accounting this fall. Something you may not know about Skylar is that he plans to pursue a career in law after college. I would like to introduce David Baker. He's a sophomore at South Aiken and he's a club member. In addition to this club, he's involved in student council as student body secretary and treasurer, varsity track, cross country, and tennis. He's also in Nu Alpha Theta, Spanish Honor Society, and is a Tertullian club instructor. David hopes to attend Michigan University after graduation to study mechanical engineering. Something you may not know about David is that his favorite type of pizza is Hawaiian, preferably from Domino's.
I would like to introduce Kendall Stars. She is a junior at South Aiken and she is a club member. In addition to this club, she is also an equestrian hunter jumper and junior class president. Kendall hopes to attend Clemson University to study political science after graduation. After college, she would like to attend law school and become a criminal defense attorney. She currently works at Devonwood Farms, where she teaches horseback riding lessons to children. Something you may not know about Kendall is that she loves to waste her money on Starbucks.
I would like to introduce Samantha in Veniz, Florida. She's a senior at South Aiken and the club's speech consultant. She's also an avid writer and a music connoisseur. Samantha will attend USC Aiken in the fall to study English. Something that you may not know about her is that until last year, she didn't know what casseroles were.
I would like to introduce Kalila. She is a senior at South Aiken and she is a club member. In addition to this club, she is also a varsity soccer player and a club/high school swimmer. Kalila will attend the honors college at USC Columbia to study neuroscience in the fall. Something you may not know about Kalila is that she plays guitar and is working on writing her own songs.
Thank you so much. If you may take your seats. And audience members and judges, if you would please open your booklets to the opening speech is the story of Aiken, and it's going to be presented by Samantha Veniz, Florida, our speech consultant. If you will take a look at if you turn the page
class when back when I was at Millbrook Elementary, my class went on a field trip to Hitchcock Woods. It was here where a tour guide mentioned that Aiken wouldn't be here if it weren't for a love story. Legend has it that William Aiken Sr., the first president of the South Carolina Railroad Company, lectured Alfred Dexter, a railroad surveyor, that fell for William's daughter, Sarah, and warned him that if there's no railroad for me, young man, no girl for you. This insider knowledge stuck with me as time went on, so it was quite a good thing to find through my research that the couple did get married, and more importantly, William got his railroad that put our town on a map. When you look at a map of West Central South Carolina, you will find a flag-shaped stretch of land containing pieces formerly part of Barnwell, Edgefield, Lexington, and Warrensburg that is known as Aiken County. The county itself was incorporated on March 10, 1871, but its spirit dates back to the 1830s, when William Aiken Sr. ran railroad tracks through the area to connect the inlands of Hamburg to the coast of Charleston. To the people traveling on these trains, Aiken was a breath of fresh air that gave them a place to retreat. Passengers from the Charleston end of the railroad spent their wealth in the Aiken area to avoid the malaria-plagued summer months. These trips were put on hold when the Civil War and its Battle of Aiken erupted, but they eventually resumed in the 1890s. It was around this time when Northern aristocrats specifically took great advantage of the recreation opportunities like polo, golf, and hunting, which were offered in Aiken's colder months at places like the luxurious Wilcox, earning Aiken the title of being the winter colony. Amongst the winter colonists were the Michigan lawyer Henry Dibble, who was responsible for creating the avenue of oaks that framed South Boundary, after wanting a more scenic route to his job at the Bank of Aiken. Hoban's Gardens is another part of Aiken graced by the presence of southern live oaks, a beauty that initiated the emergence of preservation efforts like Aiken State Park, Audubon Silver Bluff Sanctuary, Aiken Land Conservancy, and the Carolina Bay Nature Preserve. The gardens were planted by C. Oliver Island, who traveled from Rhode Island with her sister, Hope Island, whom to the times equestrian community was known as the Great Lady of Racing. Another integral winter colonist was the New York businessman, Thomas Hitchcock, who, in both the literal and metaphorical sense, made a name for himself that is still a talking point to this day. You may have driven past his namesake of Hitchcock Woods on your way here today, or you may have attended the spring steeplechase hosted by the Aiken Steeplechase Association, an organization Hitchcock founded alongside Temple Gaffney and Harry Worcester. The intersection of the urban forest and horseback riding that Hitchcock and his wife Lulie are credited for situates with the Aiken Hounds, the organization that initiates the Blessing of the Hounds hunting event. Horses and riders partake in the Blessing of the Hounds by trekking behind the dog breed as they hunt. This event is just one of the many examples of Aiken's equestrian traditions that continue to this day. Along with the aforementioned steeplechase, the Aiken Trials and Pacers the Polo event complete the town's Triple Crown tradition, with each attracting thousands of curious spectators eyeing this part of Aiken's heritage every year. To balance the equestrian adrenaline rush are the assuring presence of stewarding programs like Aiken Equine Rescue, the Great Oak Equine Assisted Programs, the Aiken Horse Park Foundation. At the end of the day, the two tracks converge to lead Aiken's equestrian culture forward. As the cultural track progressed, Aiken's economic development track has progressed too. Whiskey Road, for example, became the transportation route it is known for today because of being a hub for the movement of alcohol products during the Prohibition era. When the Cold War started brewing, the Department of Energy designated space to build the Savannah River site. The site was originally intended to produce nuclear materials, but now it prioritizes the management of nuclear stockpiles, so they complied with environmental regulations that protect the area's wildlife. Even after SRS changed priorities, Aiken still stations key figures in national defense. One of the more recent developments include the South Carolina National Guard Cyber Integration Center, or the CIC, based at the University of South Carolina at Aiken. The CIC partnership aims to promote cybersecurity research initiatives, economic expansion, and workforce enhancement centered for Aiken County. With all the weight Aiken's story carries, it is vital to recognize all the tracks, literally and metaphorically, that lead to where we are now in downtown Aiken. How much of our history can be preserved while also leaving room for economic development? Perhaps today we'll learn from the past to find the answers for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. The amount of research this young woman did for that speech is incredible. She worked very hard to write and try to cover and touch base on every aspect of Aiken that she could. With that, we're going to begin the next phase of our show, and that is the debate. So if I could have my debate competitors please take the stage. Thank you. So while they're situating themselves, I thought I would just walk through, if you'll turn to your booklets, that this is a public forum debate. As you judge this debate, please base your decision on each team's argument, not on your personal beliefs. Try to remain as objective as you possibly can. Also, please keep in mind that while these students chose this topic, they did not choose the side of the argument that they were taking. It was a coin toss. So they could be sitting before you arguing a stance with which they personally disagree. So please understand that we work hard to maintain an objective approach to our research. Debaters should advocate or reject the resolution in a manner clear to the non-specialist citizen. So that's why this is called a public forum. It's intended to appeal to anyone who walks through the door interested in this topic, whether they have expertise or not. Debaters should display solid logic and reasoning, advocate a position, utilize evidence, and communicate clear ideas using professional decorum. And as I said in my initial speech, we really work very hard at maintaining civility and empathy. After all, we are a united group. Neither the affirmative nor the negative is permitted to offer a plan or counterplan. This is not about proposing a solution. Rather, this is more about analyzing and arguing the problem. Debaters may offer a generalized practice solution, but they should not go in depth into any particular solution. Crossfire time should be dedicated to questions and answers rather than reading evidence. Evidence may be referred to extemporaneously, so the crossfire, they should be working and making lots of eye contact with you and so on. Speaking of which, debate teams, you're going to find that during the crossfire, they're going to work hard to maintain their eye contact on you, not on each other. This is not about confronting or having confrontation with one another. It is about solving problems. So we retain focus on the judges and on the audience. No new arguments may be introduced. So whatever their contentions are, all of their evidence must fall under the umbrella of their contentions. They may not introduce new contentions. You may rate each group's speaking skills. So if you look down at the bottom, you might find that, say, the negative wins the debate, but the affirmative were better speakers, or vice versa. Just because one team has better speaking skills than the other, the ultimate judgment is not on their speaking skills. It's more on their actual arguments. On the back of that page is where you can leave more comments, and you can provide reasons for your decision once you feel you've made one. will find on the screens, you'll see the names of each speaker and the time constraints of each component.
I would like to offer the following definitions to ensure clarity for today's debate. Historic preservation, any activity that identifies, protects, rehabilitates, or enhances historic resources. Economic development, programs, policies, and activities that seek to improve economic well-being. Cultural erasure, the suppression or disappearance of a culture's distinct elements. There is no new world that you can make without the old world. American Canadian artist Jane Jacobs once asserted that the significance of past environments inherently serves as the basis for future environments. Aiken County must allow this philosophy to guide the handling of our historic sites, because it would drive economic opportunities, protect our community's identity. It is for these reasons that we feel compelled to confirm today's resolution. Historic preservation ought to be prioritized in Aiken. Aiken's historic preservation laws bolster many of the industries that are vital to Aiken's economy. According to Eric Gordon, the tourism director for the city of Aiken, 2025 saw 10,000 more tourists visit Aiken in 2024. This growth is expected to translate to an additional 10% increase in tourism for 2026. Furthermore, Gordon states there are 5 pillars which are vital to tourism in the city of Aiken: art, history, parks, downtown, and the equestrian industry. Almost all these pillars have some connection to the history of Aiken and are in turn protected by the historic preservation efforts. Most apparently, Aiken's history is protected by the Overlay Districts Ordinance, which states that it is essential that areas, sites, structures, and objects related to the history of the city of Aiken, as well as that of Aiken County, be preserved. Furthermore, this law points out that preservation, quote, preserves property values and attracts businesses, tourists, and residents alike. Laws like the Overlay District Ordinance are important to the history of Aiken. Moreover, Aiken's equestrian industry is predicated on historic preservation. For example, the Aiken Land Conservatory keeps areas in the sports district unpaved and ideal for the economic community. This preserves Aiken's deep equestrian history, and moreover, current development projects pose significant harm to Aiken. For example, Aiken will be the home to a new 715,000 square foot Meta AI data center. According to Meta, this data center will only create roughly 100 permanent jobs. However, while the economic benefit of this data center may be small, the environmental impact is massive. AI data centers this size can use roughly 300,000 gallons of water per day. Additionally, these data centers create significant amounts of light and noise pollution. Finally, not only are the data centers themselves big, but they require huge power supplies, often requiring farmland and repurpose to accommodate these power supplies. In some ways, these power supplies pose an even greater threat to Aiken than the data centers themselves. Recently, the Ellis Power Company was surveying private land and attempting to buy out private farmland and horse pastures. In an interview with the Post and Courier, equine competitor and cancer researcher Samantha stated that the Ellis Power Company reached out to buy her land to build a gas-powered power plant. Unmanaged development projects like this must be stopped if Aiken wants to preserve not only its economy, but its culture as well. Historic preservation is necessary in preventing cultural leveling as well. The downtown Aiken area is full of historic architecture that both gives the area character and its functional purpose. For example, Aiken's premier hotel, the Wilcox, is over 100 years old and serves some of the most powerful, influential, and famous people in the country, such as FDR and the Vanderbilt family. Buildings and businesses like these are core to Aiken's history, and the people of Aiken have repeatedly fought to preserve them. Most famously, Aiken recently rallied together to reject the Pascalis project. The Pascalis project was a redevelopment project focused on downtown's Newberry Street. This project was initially presented as the renovation of historic Hotel Aiken. However, as the project progressed, it was revealed that Hotel Aiken and 7 other properties were going to be demolished. Upon this revelation, Aiken rallied together to stop the demolition from happening. The public protested and pursued legal action, all in an effort to preserve the history of Aiken. The facts paint a clear picture. Historic preservation is not only necessary for the economy, but it's necessary to make sure that Aiken stays Aiken. The affirmative rest.
Renowned urban designer Jan Gale once said, "First life, then spaces, then buildings. The other way around never works." For evolving economies within growing areas like our own, Aiken County, local policy must prioritize development and strong, reliable economy rather than letting the past hinder it. I, David Baker, and my teammate, Mary Davisson, both strongly negate today's resolution that historic preservation ought to be prioritized in Aiken County. First, economic adaptability is essential for growing regions. Tavon Pettinger stated in 2023 that economic growth brings higher living standards by raising incomes and creating more jobs while boosting tax revenues that allow governments to improve public services without increasing tax rates. In contrast, tourism-driven economies created by historic preservation fail to deliver these benefits at the same level as diversified, development-focused economies. Lower wages from the tourism sector translate to less consumer spending, reduced tax revenue, and fewer resources for public services. Opposingly, let's take the specific example of Savannah River site, established in Aiken County in 1950. The site initially received backlash due to the scale of development required and the abnormality compared to the area's economy at the time. However, this economic investment transformed the local economy, bringing 15,800 residents employment, offering an average annual income of $97,900, generating $289 million in total taxes, and spending $114 million on local, historically underutilized buildings. Economy-focused projects like the SRS and the Aiken Region Medical Center provide high-paying year-round jobs and support long-term county growth, overshadowing the benefits of any historic preservation programs in the past decades. Finally, strict historic preservation policies can initially limit who gets to live and invest in certain areas. A study in the Journal of American Planning Association found that historic designation frequently comes with complicated requirements, increased maintenance costs, and heedless zone changes, turning our most precious areas like downtown Aiken into spaces that only the wealthy can afford, making it harder for younger and low-income families to assimilate. These results directly oppose the definition of sustainability when they fully compromise our future generations' ability to enjoy this precious town. Second, economic prioritization is vital to combat the growing housing and affordability crisis in Aiken. In the past decade, both Aiken's population and economy have experienced unforeseen growth. Since 2020 alone, 2,000 new residents moved to Aiken County. This population boom comes with its own consequences. As the demand for affordable housing rises and wages steadily decrease, many citizens are being forced to live on the streets. Reports show a 600% increase in homelessness in the past 7 years, with over 400 Aiken County residents being identified as homeless. Aiken can no longer ignore this issue. If the city wants to truly support its citizens, while Aiken continues to ignore this crisis, more families suffer. Furthermore, the economy cannot be properly prioritized if taxpayer dollars go towards maintaining the buildings of the past. For example, the recent Affirmative building incident is causing millions of dollars of repair for poor electrical work and even poor maintenance that could be used towards true economic power building. By prioritizing historic restoration over economic development, the city of Aiken is failing to support the people that it depends on most. While preservation and tourism have value and are actively supported,
How much time would you like?
Take a minute.
Okay, at this time, you're welcome to quietly confer with one another on what you've heard so far. They're going to be taking some time to plan their thoughts.
jobs and a bunch of money to this small economy.
So that's actually not true. The data center will only provide about 100 permanent jobs, and it will take up over 715,000 square feet of land.
Actually, we have statistics that disprove that. It'll bring in 1,000 construction jobs in the first year alone.
Yeah, but that's only during the construction. Only 100 of those jobs will end up being permanent.
So do you think those jobs are pointless then?
They're pointless, but I don't think you can argue for long-term sustainability if you're also going to argue for temporary jobs.
It's also hundreds of $millions worth of investment. Do you think that will not return back to Aiken City government?
I think there's a chance it will, but taking up that much land will take up from different smaller independent people who will pay property taxes, which will go to local institutions like schools.
Can we ask you a question now?
Of course.
Reports show an increase in evictions across Aiken County, especially in the downtown historic district. Why should historic preservation be prioritized over affordability when long-standing Aiken citizens are being forced out of their own community?
I don't think that historic preservation is directly causing long-term eviction.
It's proven that historic preservation raises tax rates and property values, which means people can't afford to live in their homes anymore when historic districts become too expensive.
What's your source for this?
The Aiken County Homeless Coalition.
Okay. Can we ask you a follow-up question?
Sure.
If it were possible to boost the economy of the city by developing rapidly and replacing all historical sites, would you do it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that
If
question?
it was possible to boost the economy of the city, but you had to replace all historical sites in order to do it necessary.
It wouldn't be necessary, but it would be beneficial, yes.
So you would say it's more beneficial to erase our history, to boost the economy, than to keep our current economy and preserve our current history.
I think the economy is what keeps people alive. It gives them homes, it gives them employment. So that is what must take priority above all else, especially within city government. Can we ask you a question now?
Of course.
By definition, economic growth is the increase in a population's technological innovation, employment, and standard of living. Do you think it benefits a population to prioritize culture over these factors?
Could you repeat that?
By definition, economic growth is the increase in a population's technological innovation, employment, and standard of living. Do you think it benefits a population to prioritize culture over these factors?
I think that our culture is important to our standard of living. It provides different amenities
But why must it be prioritized over the economy?
to keep our town unique and keep our character.
But what about actually keeping people alive and living here?
Our unemployment rate is well within line with the national average. It's only 4.2.
Must be connected. In Aiken, future economic prosperity depends on the identity and history of the town today as a means of attracting visitors. In addition, they commented that new development brings in more money than preservation does, and while this is objectively true, it begs the question, what is the cost of unregulated development in Aiken? In cities like Columbus, Ohio, and Charlotte, North Carolina, the cost of economic growth and development has been the city's cultural and historic identity. While their economies prosper, there is nothing culturally significant to distinguish them from other large cities. We as a community do not want this to happen to us. The negative has also said that since data centers will bring money to Aiken's economy, it justifies their presence here. However, towns in other parts of the South have experienced this dilemma of data centers first overtaking their economy and then their culture. For example, Loudoun County in Virginia was a horse Battisto Club. It is done in an effort to promote shared access to the identity and culture of Aiken. On the contrary, high levels of development and an influx of people lead to higher cost of living. Basic supply and demand principles can verify that when a community suddenly has a massive number of new residents, the cost of living rises. Areas deemed desirable for their location, which according to the negative would be areas near job opportunities, will attract massive amounts of residents, which is the demand portion of this equation. This increases housing prices because the supply, which is the available houses in the area, cannot keep up with the demand. In conclusion, historic preservation is not a burden to society, but rather a foundation of society. It is essential to Aiken's economy and culturally rich history that we continue to preserve historical sites and not diminish their significance. The negative, or the affirmative rests.
Negative, how much time would you like to take prior to your rebuttal? 1 minute?
My opponent mentioned that historic buildings are a key part of Aiken's community. The city of Aiken has a rich history. However, this never has and never should overpower the city's prioritization of its people. Currently, Aiken is facing rapid expansion. The population has grown nearly 30% in the past 20 years. By focusing primarily on economic growth, Aiken can accommodate for new homeowners seeking affordable housing. Without this prioritization, the city faces an immediate housing crisis, and thousands could suffer. My opponent also said that cultural preservation protects culture and identity/history. Cultural preservation is important, but this debate is about priority, not elimination. A strong economy is what actually allows communities to maintain and invest in their history long term. Without economic growth, there are fewer resources for preservation itself. In fact, areas with higher median incomes spend significantly more on cultural institutions and historic maintenance. Economic strength supports preservation, not the other way around. My opponent also said that economic prioritization only boosts employment while ignoring a community's identity. This argument is absurd because it is exactly what a city should do. Before its culture or identity or history, a city is a group of people living and working nearby. That is why a city government must prioritize housing and employment before all else, because these elements are the very backbone of a community. This is what supports stable incomes. This is what provides families with homes. And this is what needs to be prioritized by city government. The affirmative has highlighted the value of historic preservation to the identity of Aiken County. What they have failed to demonstrate is how historic preservation addresses Aiken's most pressing issue, the economic well-being of its people. The evidence consistently shows that right now, Aiken demands economic support. This cannot be fulfilled through land conservancy or preservation. A crisis this severe requires the stability, income growth, and long-term sustainability provided through development and industrial investment. The aim of our argument is not to devalue historic preservation, but to highlight the vitality of economic growth at a time like this. When Aiken values its past more than the present, people in need go unnoticed, and the very spirit of Aiken collapses. The negative rests.
How much time would you like to take prior to your crossfire? 1 minute.
Could I ask you a question?
Of course.
Over 3,200 acres of land in Aiken County have already been protected by the Aiken Land Conservancy. What other land in Aiken needs to be protected? What land is being threatened by economic development?
Economic development, like that data centers, directly competes with current forest pastures and forest farms. Not all land is protected by the conservatory.
But what specific land is being threatened?
Forest pastures and forest farms.
Can you give a specific example?
Yep. Cancer researcher and equine competitor Samantha stated that the Ellis Power Company reached out in an attempt to buy her out of her forest pasture to build a gas-powered power plant to power AI data centers.
How many acres was that?
It was not specified.
Because the industrial park, Sage Hill Industrial Park, which many of the businesses that you've mentioned are being built in, is 1,700 acres, while the Aiken Land Conservancy has preserved 3,200 acres, meaning this is just half of what the land being conserved in Aiken. So how is it being threatened?
Whether, can you repeat that?
The Sage Hill Industrial Park, which houses many of the businesses that you mentioned are bad for Aiken, is only 1,700 acres, while the Aiken Land Conservancy has preserved over 3,200 acres. So how is this land being threatened by industrialism?
We need to continue to preserve this land. Additionally, new data centers like this pave the way for the possibility of more to continue to overtake our forest pastures.
But it's being built within the industrial park. It has no threat of any land.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You mentioned that we are having an economic crisis in Aiken. How is it an economic crisis whenever there are only 128 homeless people living in Aiken and a 4.2% unemployment rate?
Because there's been a 600% increase in homelessness over the past 7 years. No matter how many homeless there are right now, it's increasing at a rapid rate. Furthermore, there are more than 400 students in Aiken County schools that have been identified as homeless, so I think those statistics are wrong.
Thank you.
Can we ask you a question now?
Of course.
What percentage of Aiken County's total economy does the equestrian industry actually represent?
I couldn't give you a direct percentage, but I can say that the equestrian industry provides over $150 million in the economy.
So if the equestrian industry represents a very small percent of the Aiken's economic sector, then how is it the foundation of Aiken?
It's a historical and culturally important industry that also provides 1,800 jobs and accounts for over $150 million in the economy.
But what about industries like manufacturing, healthcare, and energy that are the actual foundation of Aiken's economy? SRS alone accounts for 10% of Aiken's GDP.
How much time would you like to take prior to the summary? I'm sorry, prior. Yes. Summary. Okay.
It is evident that there are clear differences in priorities for Aiken. The negative consists that industrial growth and jobs, through pointing at SRS, is proof that development brings success to Aiken. While jobs are important, this fails to paint the full picture of what makes a community sustainable. We, the Affirmative, have found that Aiken's economy is not just supported by one industry. Tourism, small businesses, unique cultural identity are all contributors. Additionally, historic preservation still allows for adaptive use of historic spaces, meaning that the past is not holding Aiken back at all. Huge development projects like data centers directly compete with the land supporting Aiken's equine community. Organizations like the Equine Rescue of Aiken, Great Oak Equine Assistant Programs rely on farmland to function and provide assistance to people and animals. The Equine Rescue uses resources for abusive situations and slaughter, while Great Oak provides equine-based therapy for individuals with disabilities. Large developers like Meta deem this land shovel-ready and aim to rip this land from beneath them. In addition, data centers do not bring the same number of jobs as other industries. Approximately 100 people are employed despite the average data center being over 100,000 square feet. Furthermore, preservation efforts need to be taken to prevent big businesses from outside of this region to continue to harm the local population and culture. When weighing this discussion, the question is not simply which side creates more jobs or which side is more beneficial for the economy. It is which side protects Aiken as a whole, and its economy, environment, and identity as equal. Because once those are lost, they cannot be replaced. The affirmative rest.
The core of this debate is not whether historic preservation has value. The question is whether it should be prioritized above all else. Throughout this discussion, it has been demonstrated that while preservation contributes to cultural identity, it does not provide the same level of economic stability or long-term opportunity as diversified economic development. This difference is not just numerical. It directly impacts people's lives. Lower wages means less financial security, reduced local spending, and fewer resources available to support schools, infrastructure, and public services. For some, it is a difference between long-term housing and homelessness. We see this clearly in the Savannah River site, but also at Aiken Regional Medical Center, which is one of the county's largest employers, supporting over 1,000 jobs in the healthcare sector. These are stable year-round positions that provide consistent income and essential services in the community. More broadly, Aiken County has 63,000 jobs with an average wage of $60,000 annually, generating billions in local income. Unlike tourism, which often fluctuates with seasons and external factors, sectors like healthcare, manufacturing, and energy provide more long-term stability, strengthen the tax base, and ensure the communities have the resources to grow and invest in the future. Additionally, prioritizing preservation over economic growth can radically limit future opportunities by restricting redevelopment in high-demand areas. It can be driven up by property values and force long-existing citizens out of their home. As more of Aiken citizens fall into poverty each day, the city cannot afford to waste any taxpayer dollars on preservation projects. If Aiken wants to truly slow homelessness and provide support for those who are struggling, it must invest in powerful development opportunities that decrease homelessness and decrease unemployment. Economic development can be daunting and even uncomfortable. However, Aiken County is not a static place. It is a community that must continue to grow, diversify, and respond to change. Economies that rely too heavily on a single sector remain vulnerable and less equipped to support future generations. Preserving history should not come at the cost of limiting the future. A community is not defined only by what it has been, but what it allows itself to be in the future. The negative rest.
1 minute, okay, we have 1 minute. This is the final crossfire, and then after this, each team will have a final focus, which is their final word. So, we're coming close to the conclusion of the debate.
You mentioned that historic preservation forces Aikenites out of their homes. Wouldn't more Aiken residents be forced out of their homes if a massive amount of people moved to the city for new jobs?
Can you repeat the question, please?
You mentioned that historic preservation forces Aikenites out of their homes. Wouldn't more Aikenites be forced out of their homes if there were a massive amount of people moving here for jobs and those people needed housing?
No, because there'd be more people coming in, so the population would even out. Can we ask you a question now?
Of course.
If Aiken were to prioritize historic preservation above all else, what do you think would happen to the rate of unemployment?
I think the rate of unemployment would stay relatively the same, around 4.2%, which is fairly close to the national average.
You think the rate of unemployment would stabilize with historic preservation?
I I think that at the current moment, with our current industries in place, Aiken's unemployment rate would not fluctuate massively with prioritization of historic preservation.
Well, I would say at the current moment that Aiken is prioritizing the economy over the history.
Do you have any proof of that?
No, but if we were to shift completely to historic preservation and limit all industrialism, then unemployment would significantly increase.
No one is claiming that we need to limit all industrialism. We're saying simply that historic
No, but historic preservation does deliberately limit industrialism.
It limits industrialism, but it doesn't kneecap it. It's not that we're saying that all industrialism needs to be stopped or that industrialism is pure evil. We're simply saying that historic preservation, such as preserving forest pastures and forest farmland, is important to protect our history and certain sectors of our economy that we would be completely missing with completely unmanaged industrialism.
So you think industrialism right now in Aiken is unmanaged?
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that with things like new AI data centers that are fairly unpopular among the culture, we need to take a serious step back and analyze what we're doing and what we want to preserve.
But the AI data center has no threat of industrializing historic or equine land.
It does, it provides a precedent for more to move into, to get more farmland.
A precedent that already exists. You've also stated that Aiken needs to stop fake businesses. What are these fake businesses?
Can you repeat that?
You stated, quote, that Aiken needs to stop fake businesses. What are these fake businesses?
Meta's moving in a ton of AI data centers into they're moving in one at the moment into the city, but it's going to set the stage for more to come into the city. So this is a really big business. We need to prioritize our culture and our people over these big businesses who already have plenty of money for themselves.
The new data center has no threat of harming Aiken's culture.
All right, thank you. May I ask you a question?
Yes.
You mentioned that the economy should take priority over the past. If this is the case, does history matter at all, and to what extent should we attempt to preserve it?
The history does matter, but it should never take precedent over economic well-being of the city's people. That is the role of city government, to provide services and infrastructure for its people above all else before it protects its identity.
Thank you.
Do you think the city government is solely responsible for protecting history?
You say that one more time?
Do you think city government is solely responsible?
Okay, let's give a round of applause. So we're now entering the final phase of this debate. How much time would you like to take? Okay.
At the end of the day, this debate dwindles down to one question. What makes Aiken worth living in? The negative is contended that jobs and industry, especially the Savannah Riverside, make Aiken worth living in. But Aiken is not built on these industries alone. Aiken is built on its history, its land, and its community. Places like the Aiken Downtown Historic District support local businesses, bring in visitors, and create the character which makes this town unique. This is not something that we can allow to be replaced by development. Expanding industry and large-scale projects requires land. In Aiken, that land supports our equestrian community, our environment, and other programs which make Aiken the city that it is. This is not just about economics, this is about real people. Historic preservation helps to maintain stable communities and protect spaces that everyone relies on. As American transcendentalist Henry David Thoreau once said, most men are so occupied with factitious cares of life that its finer fruits cannot be plucked by them, meaning that as a society, we cannot allow for economic pressures to distract us from culture and deeper human value. Through historic preservation, we must continue protecting the life and sense of community that already exists in Aiken, not replacing it. Thank you. You've heard the rest.
Think about what kind of future Aiken County is creating. Not just for today, but for the people who are going to live here next. Because right now, this debate reaches much further than whether historic preservation should be prioritized. We are discussing whether future generations will actually be able to afford to stay here, to build a life here, and to succeed here. Hundreds of Aiken citizens are suffering unnoticed. The city government is watching as more people slip below the poverty line. If Aiken wants any chance at changing this, it needs real economic growth through development. It's clear that historic preservation, while valuable, should never be prioritized over the economic support of our community. Manufacturing, healthcare, energy, these sectors are the bread and butter of Aiken. These are the industries that truly support families who depend on it. They determine whether people can afford housing, support themselves, or even continue appreciating the valuable history of our community. Aiken County is not standing still. It cannot remain frozen in time. Aiken County is a growing, evolving province, but growth only succeeds if we allow it to happen in a way that creates opportunity instead of limiting it. The real question here is, who is Aiken being preserved for? Is it being preserved for the future? For students, families, and young professionals who want to build their lives here? Or is it being preserved in a way that makes it harder for them to belong at all? A strong community doesn't just honor its past, it creates space for its future. And that future depends on economic growth that provides stability, opportunity, and access for everyone. Preserving Aiken means nothing if its people can't afford to live here. The negative rests.
So if you would, just take a moment to write some comments about what your final thoughts, and you're going to be prepared to cast a vote for who you think won the debate. I want to, before we transition into the final portion of the showcase today, I want to say one last thing about this group of kids. Please keep in mind, they're doing this for fun. No, really. I mean, you heard the list of activities that they're all a part of. They're doing this on top of all of that. This club is a club, it is not a class. Yes, please, let's give them a round of applause. The amount of research that I have watched these kids, the amount of research is unbelievable. The amount of practice, the amount of times that we've gotten together in the classroom. We've talked about the concepts that you heard today. I hope that Aiken is proud. I hope that South Aiken is also proud. Thank you. You all did a phenomenal job. One more time. Sophomore, senior, junior. Amazing group of kids. Let's give them one more round of applause. Take a seat, and we have our final presenter, Ms. Kalila O'Quinn. Oh, sorry, oh goodness. Thank you. Excellent, thank you. Thank you. And with that, Ms. Kalila O'Quinn.
Good afternoon. My name is Kendall, and I will be reading a poem called Komorebi. There used to be a fig tree in the yard next to mine. It grew along the fence and would drop its sweet fruit into our grass. With permission from our neighbors, we would pick figs every summer. When the brown bulbs were ripe and their delicate flesh tore easily under our teeth. Year after year, the figs would grow, and so would I. Soon, I could pick whole handfuls by myself and was smug about it, because my little sister wasn't tall enough to reach the higher leaves and was forced to settle for the low-hanging branches. White buckets of fruit would come home with us, many shared with friends, most kept for our own enjoyment. Picked for free, but infinitely priceless. The tree came down eventually, when a new neighbor decided that he didn't like the look of it. Even the stump was removed to ensure efficiency. At 10 years old, this was an irreparable loss. Precious summers, dozens of baskets, hundreds of figs, gone within a day. Much I've come to realize, like life. In a month, I will be graduating high school and attending college in Columbia in the fall. I've lived in Aiken all my life. Aiken, with its antique southern charm that attracts attention from all over. The cobblestone paths and open gardens, lined with flowering blooms and cool streams. The local university, where brilliant minds are nurtured to success. The hot steeplechases and polo fields, where the sundresses and khakis make their first spring appearance. The quaint downtown streets, with their familiar shops and art centers and homes. The miracle of South Boundary, with its arching trees that feel like a warm embrace after a long day. There is a Japanese word, Komorebi, that I feel describes this shaded street perfectly, despite its lack of an English equivalent. Komorebi embodies the phenomenon of sunlight filtering through the leaves, casting a soft glow on shadowed ground. A phenomenon understood by anybody who has traversed that south boundary and felt the warm kiss of summer on a hot, languid Sunday afternoon. It is a familiar sensation, among many others, that I will miss as I spend the next 4 years surrounded by Columbia's soaring buildings and glass-lined streets. And I find myself anxious about this approaching change, as I prepare to leave the only home that I've ever known. In her book, The Bell Jar, author Sylvia Plath compares life to a fig tree, every branch bursting with a bright future, each leaf lush with possibility and opportunity. She sits at the tree's roots, aching with hunger, despite the fruit above her, because she cannot decide which to pick. And as she waits, more figs shrivel up and fall to the ground, wasted, uneaten. Some days I share her sentiments, when the future's foliage feels too thick to see the sky beyond. When I worry so much about the unattainable figs at the top of the tree, that I let the ones within reach wrinkle and go bad. But I've spent my whole life at these roots, and I've come to learn that it does not matter what fruit my future bears, if the soil from which it grows is not rich with love and community. This is what Aiken is to me and to so many, a place of kind strangers and good friends, a place that has held its antique beauty while keeping up with an ever-changing world. The fruit that I failed to pick, the fruit that falls, is not failure, but rather a chance to learn and to love better next time. And the wrinkled figs that litter the ground before me will eventually return to their roots to enrich the soil from whence they came, and make those next fruits that much sweeter. Like them, when I face trial, I am reassured by the knowledge that I can always return to my roots, to my home. And, as promised by Scripture, I will sit under my own fig tree, and I will not be afraid. As I rest in the shade and watch the sunlight dance at my feet, the Komorebi illuminating hope for what comes next. Thank you.
I don't know where the button is. This is a different number. Let's give her one more round of applause. She's writing since her sophomore year when she was in 2 of my classes. And I am honored to have heard it today too. Excellent work. So with that, our show concludes, and we thought we would take a moment and love to hear something about each of the 2 speakers from our judges. Do you have any feedback that you'd like to offer, just especially as people who are so familiar with Aiken? Let's have our 2 speakers, please, first.
Oh, I just have a general comment.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Pertaining to the entire debate. Would you like to speak more specifically about
The speeches first, please. We're gonna go to the debates in just a moment.
Oh,
And then certainly you're welcome to comment on anything at that time.
Well, yes, I'll speak on the speakers. First of all, beautiful poem, and inside I'm actually moving away because I didn't get a thought about, moving and going to maybe Greenville or something in the past, but decided to stick around in Aiken and see what I can do here. But also, good job to you for that historical illustration. That was good. Even starting from the romantical theme of it and just following all the way through to what really began Aiken from the railroad all the way to now. That was great.
Yes, I agree with what Roscoe said. The opening was fantastic. I absolutely love the story about William Aiken. I think that's a unique and great story to share. You also mentioned polo, golf, and hunting. I think that was good to include that in your opening also. But spot on, it was stellar. Yours as well was awesome. I can attest to somebody leaving and going away for college, how challenging that can be. I went all the way off to West Virginia for school, so that was a big change for me moving. And I went to high school in Columbia, so I do understand, having to go through downtown was completely different than going through Aiken. I can assure you that. So everything was spot on, stellar as well. You both did a phenomenal job.
I agree, and I very much enjoyed the history of Aiken, the way you explained it, really well done. If I was allowed to comment, I would say maybe just slow down, look up. Yeah. The content and the delivery were very, very good, and I enjoyed that, thank you.
Thank you.
So the debaters, if you would please come. Okay, so at this time, we would like to, I'm going to hand the microphone over to Ella. She is equipped to tell you how to cast your vote.
So just so that we get an exact vote of what the audience thinks who won, I ask that you will please scan the QR code and it will take you to the form. If you need any assistance scanning the QR code, our members will help you. So please raise your hand. As you are filling out that form, we will have the judges give their feedback.
Affirmative and negative. You guys both did a great job. The affirmative, you guys had some solid points. One thing that I would suggest is maybe slowing a lot of it down a little bit. It was a little rough for me to kind of catch everything you guys are saying. But other than that, everything you said from the affirmative aspect was spot on. The only thing that I would suggest is you would mention the question piece, and then you would say other, but didn't say what the others were. So I would just say expanding on what the others are so that way people can understand, because sometimes you may have an audience where everyone in the audience is a question, but you may have some people that are not, who may be looking for that and maybe on the affirmative side. So I would just say keep everything a little more broader in your affirmative, but you guys made some great points. On the negative side, Mary, you pretty much told me how I need to do my job moving forward. And David as well. So I'll definitely take some of this information back to City Council and say, look, we need to have Kendall, Skylar, David, and Mary all come and tell us what we need to do. Y'all did a great job. On the negative, you guys had some solid points. And I'm a preservation and progress guy, so I'm right in the middle. But I love how, I think Mary, you made a comment about stability, opportunity, and access. I think that was stellar. And David, I know that you mentioned prioritizing economic growth, tourism, driving the economy. I think that was pivotal. And you also brought up the piece of the 600% increase in homelessness. I think that was something that should stand out to folks as we see that in our town right now. We see homelessness as a huge issue around the entire city. But both groups, you guys were spot on. I'm glad it was you guys up there, not me. But great job, really great job, awesome job. Let's give it a hand, y'all.
No, I agree, and I'm especially impressed with all four of your passion to the topic and the way that you addressed them and your preparedness. There's so many facts. I would say constructively that I did feel like as soon as everyone started speaking, I felt a time constraint, like the time was ticking so fast and you had so much to say that you spoke quickly and didn't maybe look up and have contact with the audience as much as you could. And I'm wondering, not being a professional, not being a debater with the polish that you have, but I'm wondering if you can refine the words so that you can shorten things down and be able to speak a little more slowly so the audience can absorb it, because you did give us a lot of really great information. I didn't want to miss any of it. And I would also say, for me, when facts are presented and then conclusions are given, I want to really believe. I think there's a big piece between saying a fact and drawing a conclusion where you have to take the audience with you there. Does that make sense? And sometimes I felt like an important fact was made and then a conclusion was drawn, but I didn't necessarily agree with the way
Yeah, so when it comes down to the affirmative side, well, first let me say, all of y'all did an amazing job. I probably couldn't do this when I was y'all age, so. I mean, yeah, barely. So, on the affirmative side, you guys, y'all straight. Y'all made some really, really good points. The only thing I would say is, it was a little narrow in the sense that it only kind of geared towards the equestrian side of things. Someone who's avid outdoorsman and I've owned horses before. Don't get on me anymore because these can take expensive. So just geared it towards that, and then just thinking about I sit on the planning commission, so we make a lot of decisions when it comes down to ordinance and what comes and what gets built in Aiken to relay that information to council for them to make better decisions. With that, just following through it, there's another board, design review board. Things make it restrictive to the point where you can't price people out of houses. So that's just, a point on that. Having been someone that sits in the middle, closer to what Councilman Waldo said, when it comes down to the negative side, you guys did a good job of outlining progression. Things that are progression within the city is things like the alley, Newberry Event Center. Those things have preserved our history along with bringing something in new for the newer generations. And I like to find some of what you said is who is Aiken being preserved for. That's a great topic because that's just expensive on whatever else you were talking about. But overall, both sides did a very good job.
I just wanted to mention from a personal perspective, when you asked about the economic impact of the equine business in Aiken County, when that topic came up, there was just a silence, and you all are very well prepared, and I'm silent too, because Aiken doesn't know the answer to that question, and I don't see how, speaking personally, the city or the county can be making any decisions about the future of the horse business here before they have quantitative numbers. I really think we need some type of economic impact study. And I think the board, with all the preparation that you put in, having no answer to that question, you were right. We don't have an answer to that question.
Okay, everybody, let's give them one more round of applause.
I think we can all agree that they did an amazing job. But we do have a vote, and the official winner is the negative team.
They made this look so much easier than it actually is. As someone who teaches this skill, you would not believe the difference between students that really struggle with it. They made it look easy. This was one of the better debates that I've seen, and I'm just so very, very proud of them. So thank you, and our two speakers, thank you very much. So with this, we have concluded. We have kind of a grand finale, everybody, and that is if I can have my seniors please to approach the front. These seniors, and we have something very special to offer them. This is our okay, so I'm going to start with we had to keep these hidden from the seniors, I'm sorry. So we're going to start with something special that I picked out for each of you. And this is, true to Miss Peppy form, I have to leave you with a book. Except this book is meant for you to write in. You can just go ahead and hand them. Thank you. So this is for each of our seniors who are going to be leaving us. They've worked so hard throughout this club. And I hope that as you go on wherever you head in your next adventure, that you will us here at the Speech and Debate Club. The next thing that I wanted to offer is a couple of personalized gifts that I have for you. So first thing, I'm going to really embarrass you. This is the moment that I've been waiting for all day. And yes, you have to wear it, Mary. For you. For you. For you. For you. And for you. Wear it proudly. Mary's not happy with me. And in fact, I'm going to start with Mary. So the other day, as you can see, she's a very sweet person, but you get her at that table, and she is like a tiger. Yet, guess what her backpack is? Hello Kitty. So, when I saw that the one day, I thought that's like the greatest contradiction I have ever seen. So, and given the fact that you're injured, and you can't do much, I decided that in your spare time, you can make Hello Kitty jewelry. Next, Samantha. Samantha, you have learned more about oak trees in your process than you probably, in the process of the research, that you probably ever thought you would. But there's also something about oak trees. Oak trees are a symbol of wisdom, they're a symbol of strength, and I wanted to offer this to you, as well as a quote from Joshua. Oh my goodness, Ella. This girl, you would not believe the amount of time, effort, energy, and herding speech and debate people is kind of like herding cats. And so she had her work cut out for you. So Ella, I want you to go home. I want you to curl up with a class of 2026 blanket. And just know that you are irreplaceable in my world, and in not just my world, but in Samantha. Skylar, this young man, when he was in my class as a 10th grader, right? I am not kidding you, he didn't say a word. The entire year. Like he never, ever, ever spoke the whole year. So when he joined speech and debate, I was so confused. I was actually confused because I said, is he gonna talk? And so here he is, standing before you as not only the vice president of this club, but also a leader in this club. I have to tell you, one time there was a showcase a couple years ago, last year, when a debater just decided not to show up. And we called Skylar that morning. Skylar, we need you. He said, I'm going to be there. And there he was. So here's what I have for you. It might be a small gift, but it was very well thought out. Because this world is yours. I hope you traveled it.
I hope so too.
Last, are Kalila's parents here? Okay, I'm sorry I had to do this.
Happy Earth Day!
I couldn't resist. This little fig tree. I promised Mom and Dad she doesn't have to plant it in the ground. She could put it in a pot. And I hope that someday you'll sit under it and you'll think about your time here with us. So this is for you. And with that, that concludes our show for today. But if we could get all of our members to come up for one final photo. No, you may not. We'll take one with them on.
I'm gonna make you wear that during Mellow Mushroom, okay? We're keeping them on. Y'all should come up here.
One more round of applause. Thank you so much for this.
Give us feedback, let us know what we can make better for next year, hopefully. And with that, our showcase is concluded.
Emma said she would stay better. She's right there.
Probably gonna take a million pictures, so. Oh, can we get a picture with some reference? Yeah, yeah, yeah.